Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host Dr. Steve Jeffs. I myself, Erwin de Grave, and today we have the pleasure to talk to Wencke Meteling. Hello Wencke, how are you doing?
Hello, great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure, and of course Steve, welcome as well. So Wencke, we could try to introduce yourself, but you know yourself much better than we do. So who's Wencke, how did she got in coaching, and what does she do in coaching nowadays?
So, I would never have imagined that I become a coach. I had been a historian for almost 20 years, and my goal was to become a history professor. And then everything turned out differently. So by the time I had moved to the US together with my husband, I'm in Washington, D.C., and I got diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018. And first I thought, oh, I'll keep on reading my source material so I can do some intellectual stuff on the side. Well, proved to be very different. Chemo was really demanding, took a long time, and my brain at the time was at the stage of a 7-year-old, which is pretty normal for chemo patients, but was quite some experience for an intellectual like me. But I really adjusted well, and the strange thing was that while undergoing chemo, I was happy in a way that really struck me. And I learned a lot of the stuff I guess we are doing with our clients, like really slowing down when there's too much pressure, being your authentic self, just taking good care of yourself. I really practice self-love and patience. I went at a very slow pace. That was just the right thing to do at the time. And when, fortunately, I was fully cured, I felt the old performance pressure creeping back in. And I was more depressed then than I had been during chemo. One day I told my best friend on the phone, you know what? I found it easier to undergo chemo than to write my second book. And she was super straightforward. She said, Wencke, you should think about your profession. And that phrase stuck with me. So I did my homework. I really thought about my profession, sorted through what I had loved about my former job. See, I now call it my former job. I was transitioning out of academia already, I think. And then I got the idea, oh, I want to become a coach because that's all interhuman work, human to human, deep listening, really supporting the whole person. Like I was never able in my old profession. I was a mentor for a lot of students and also colleagues, but there are limits to what you can do even as a mentor. I find coaching more holistic. And so I found that profession. And at the same time, I found horses in my life. And that's what has been with me ever since. I'm spending a lot of time with horses and I'm working as a leadership coach, and I really love it.
Fascinating. What did you learn about yourself through this journey?
So much. I saw clearly what I enjoy and what drains me. I found that I hate pressure. And because I was really intellectually incapacitated at the time, pressure even meant answering to emails. That was too much, especially if the email was too long, because my brain got so tired reading anything, let alone thinking about my response. And that made me think about my profession. And I found, oh, I put so much pressure on myself. And I never found a way out of that. It was not so much the pressure through the system, what a lot of academics often say the system is tough. It's tough to make a career there, but actually they are putting a lot of pressure on themselves. And I just did the same thing, but I guess I wasn't ready to fully recognize that. And so I found, oh, I am so happy with being fully present and not being in my head all the time, doing small, beautiful things like starting a garden, watching my favorite TV series from the 80s, from my childhood. And what I loved about it is it's not performance related. So this is not about accumulating more knowledge, going to the edge of my intellectual capacities and so on. No, it's just for well-being, enjoying life, hearing good stories. Um, and I also found that maybe history is not as central to who I am. That was a long process to let go of that identity. I'll always be a historian, but I do not have to deal with history 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm perfectly happy with maybe jumping back in now and then just for fun or hearing about it, hearing a good talk, reading a good book. But it really fulfills me when I'm with humans. I hear their stories and I can support them the best I can.
You were talking about you putting yourself so much pressure on yourself, and that others did as well. And I'm wondering, what is the reason to put so much pressure on you? What was that going to say? That pressure.
I guess a lot of high achievers enter academia. And if you're passionate about your discipline, like I certainly was about history, it's almost like a natural path to keep pushing forward to the next level. So first, that is a great final exam, a great master's thesis. Then, oh yeah, of course I want to do a PhD. Then you do that. And when you are in that academic world, you look up to your favorite professors. And I had great mentors, great history professors. They're friends to this day. And at least I thought, but I think a lot of my friends who were and still are in academia were pretty much the same in that regard. They also looked up to those who had made it in on that path. And the idea is when you want to be excellent, that means you have to be one of the best in the field. So it's always about comparing yourself as that is. I know that from a coaching perspective, but you do compare yourself with the others. How do their CVs look like? What's missing in mine? And you're working on that. And when you get a great accomplishment, you're satisfied. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? There's always goals. They are always beyond of where you are. So you're stretching, stretching, stretching. And it's not so much that the others are pushing you. My professors didn't tell me, hey, Wencke, you have to work harder. No, it's that you spend a lot of time by your own on your desk with your books and papers, and you have that internal fight going on against your own standards. And usually that's with my friends too, and a couple of academics I'm coaching and myself, our own standards are even higher. So no matter how good you are, especially probably when you are very good at what you're doing, your own standards are even higher. And it's an eternal fight against your
And
own
how
intellect.
come you lose that battle? Because really, that excellence is something that drives people to get somewhere. But on the other side, what you said as well, that taking your time, taking breath, enjoy, 100% that is not the right thing. I think it's to find the right balance. And so why is it so because why is it so difficult for people to find that right balance?
Oh, that is so true. Yeah. There's a lot of knowledge in the German system too around life-work balance. Um, but now being a coach, it's so much more than that, right? It's not just, oh, do you have enough time with your family? No, it's also how you spend your work time. And are you able to relax while you work? I guess a lot of historians probably haven't even thought about that question. Relax while I work? Why? I'm working. So why should there be relaxation? Or they literally don't take breaks. I mean, for some, really, it's very fundamental things that won't work in the long run.
Interesting. I love your examples from academia. I also see this certainly in business. There's external pressures, there's internal pressures, there's drive. The hands, Erwin, that you were speaking to, I think define it very well as well. You can't be in both hands at once. I've got to get out of the work to get into the life and get out of the life to get into the work. And if I'm not driving, I see this as a big fear in a lot of leaders that if I'm not driving, how can I be successful? And to your point about identity, therefore, then who am I? Um, Having gone through this journey, because it's not just sort of action and relaxation. It's also this head and this heart that you spoke to, this logical, intellectual drive for understanding, and then there's all of this being present stuff, which can feel very scary. It cannot make sense, obviously, because we're outside of the head. It can be things that many of us actively avoid when you're working with clients. How do you help them expand their range to experience all of this possibility?
That's a great question. And I find a lot of similarities between entrepreneurs and academics. There, I'm coaching these two client populations. Both groups are far too much in their head without knowing. So usually then I ask a couple of gentle questions during the conversation when it's coming up, like, oh, I see you're tensing up. What's going on? Or your posture has just changed. What do you make of it? Or sometimes they mention that they have back pain or a stiff neck or whatever. That's an opener, of course, too, to explore what's going on. And I guess the coaching term for that is, oh, they are dragging along their body. So they are in their heads and trying to solve the work problems in their head. And the body is something that has to function. But they're not actively working with their body to gain wisdom from it. And I try to go there a little with them, depending on, of course, what they're willing to do or what they are curious about. But yeah, it's part of coaching, and I think that's also part of the learning that they get more awareness where their body is, how the body is doing, and that the body is the gateway to the world. So the body usually is so much wiser than our mind ever can be. And as for the heart, that comes up a lot in the coaching conversations I have. Yeah, especially my entrepreneurs often are torn between their gut feeling or their heart and their head. And then coaching evolves around the question, how can you get those two in alignment? And what is your head telling you? What is your heart telling you? What is your gut telling you? And when do each of them raise their voices? Yeah, I love those conversations.
That's a really interesting connection there. You know, as entrepreneurs, we often see them both at the same time to be often rigorously business oriented, but also incredibly passionate. And there is that tension between the, logic and passion. And some of the best entrepreneurial examples are those that, followed their gut, believing when the rest of the world didn't. I mean, these are great, inspiring examples, and to have a space to be able to look beyond just, what fits inside our skull, I think is really powerful.
Yeah.
How do horses, could you do, equine facilitated learning and integrate, horses into coaching? I did a little bit of that last year, but how does that make visible some of what we're talking about?
Horses are so great at bringing out the authentic self in us humans. Horses just can see everything because they're these amazing sentient beings. So no matter how good we as coaches are, we can be sure that the horses looks much deeper. They literally can feel out our brain waves, our heart waves, and our gut waves. And when those three systems are not aligned, the horse will start inquiring because you don't make sense to a horse. A horse is always in alignment, always 100% present, and expresses what's going on. And it always looks for its basic needs. So that's also such a good lesson for us humans. When a horse it's frightened, it will run away. When it's completely frightened, it will freeze. Um, it's looking for connection. That's also beautiful. So horses always invite us humans to open up and to meet them where they are, and we don't carry baggage. I remember an episode on your podcast where you were talking about how the past of a human being plays into coaching. And yeah, we have a lot of stories, right? We are carrying with us. Horses are not interested in our stories. So no matter what's behind you to the horse, it's only of interest what's showing up in the very second. So it's great for somatic coaching, for being in the here and now, and for finding your true self and daring to show up as your true self. I mean, that's the big thing for a lot of humans.
What's what makes horses so special and not like dogs, or like we also had, remember Steve, a podcast about dolphins and whales. So what makes horses so special in comparison with other animals?
First of all, that they are herd animals, so they are naturally attuned to connection and they are always looking for connection and living in that social community. And then they are very, very sensitive because they are flight animals. And just in order to survive, they really are dependent on their senses. Is there danger or is there safety? Um, they always scan their environment and feel out all the other beings out there and see, oh, are they dangerous or are they safe to be with? Are they nice to be with? And there's a couple of other herd animals that you can also do coaching with, like camels, ponies, donkeys, alpacas. Yeah, I'd love to check some of the other animals out, but certainly horses are the most common co-facilitators in coaching.
You just mentioned
Yeah.
like camels and alpacas and so on. These are all animals that are transporters in the sense of they can transport things, or like a donkey, like a horse. That just came up, like camels as well, transport. Has it something to do that they are help to transport from, and that makes that connection closer, or am I wrong?
Maybe, of course, that was their historic use. They were labor animals, they're very strong. And they can live in certain regions like camels. They can get along with very, very little water. That, of course, makes them prime in dry regions. But it's also that connection piece. I remember one of the first seminars I was teaching while I was still in history was about French and Prussian officers and their relationship to their horses. And the reason I was teaching that at the time was I was so fascinated when I was talking to a colleague of mine who did history of the Prussian nobility. And one day at a coffee chat told me, it's so crazy. The relationship between officers and their horses, you wouldn't believe it. They literally write 10 times as much in their autobiographies about their horses than they do about their wives. Their wives rarely appear, but the horse is centerpiece of what they remember and what they find core to their identity and to their professional life as an officer. So we read these sources, autobiographies, and sure enough, the way they described their relationship with their horses during each period of their active career is super passionate. Yeah, I mean, it's something that people should do even more research on, but for the seminar, it was great source material.
That's really interesting. I can picture that actually. I mean, cavalry by definition requires a horse. Um, so you're right, as you spoke to, identity is a big part of that, but I can also see the relationship between the officer and the horse being completely different than between the officer and their men. And when we talk about leadership, especially these days, it's not just about task, it's not just about command and control, relationship, some of these things you spoke to, the social connection, safety, um, ability to be able to bring teams together become so important. One thing, Erwin, to your question that strikes me about things like horses is that they're pretty big. Like dogs, you can often push around, but dogs are also predators, so they've kind of got the sharp, pointy bits at the front. So I think there's a different relationship there, where as a human, we like to think that we're kind of the smartest and the top of the chain, but watching leaders interact and be terrified and lead through the fear to be able to create the connection with a horse to be able to then communicate and inspire it to do what the human wants. You can't just pull it in a direction, certainly not in a ring. And when I look at dolphins, dolphins go wherever they want. The ocean's pretty big, but horses you can put in a pen and you can constrain in a way that they still show up naturally. And so I think that certainly for executive teams and leaders to be able to show up and interact, we can create a more deeper learning context. And it's fascinating to watch because the old "I'm the boss, you do what I say" kind of doesn't work with a horse.
Yeah, which is a great experience, right? It's so true. You can't push around a horse, and in the long run, you can't pull them anywhere either. It doesn't work. You can't even force a horse to do anything. And then the whole dimension of communication is great to practice with horses. Language doesn't work, so it comes down to nonverbal communication. And another great lesson for us to become aware, what am I signaling to the horse with my body? And we do a lot of energy work too. And I've been doing that too. By nature, I'm a low energy person. That might not appear like that because I'm lively and so on, but my energy bubble around my body usually is pretty low key. That will show up in the way that the horse is entering it. It's coming very
Just
close up.
yeah. So
Yeah.
just to catch up, so some of us talk about energy, some of us have great awareness of energy, and other people are like horse sound. Like what when you say energy and energy bubble, what does that mean in a way that uh highly academic, highly entrepreneurial, high business leaders that spend their time in here, that like energy doesn't make sense in the way that we're talking because it doesn't just live in here. Help people like that, like us, connect to what you're talking about.
It's super important whenever you work together with other people they will feel the energy. They are not conscious of it. They might not even have thought about it, but they will feel it. And when you enter a boardroom, for example, it's so clear where the energy is. You can feel the energy in the room, but you can also feel the energy of each person. And for example, it will show up in the way how much space do they have. And when they're getting up and standing there as a group, who is standing as close to the other person? So the spacing is telling a lot about what's going on in that group. Or when they start moving, who's leading the group? Who is dragging behind, being small and usually silent? So also being small often goes along with being silent and then being not heard or not felt because the person didn't seem to be present. And you can do exercises around that with human beings when you work with horses. Like you can say to someone, for example, when the horse is coming up too close all the time, and then the human being will slowly cede and leave the territory to the horse. Then you can raise the awareness to that. Oh, you just walked backwards. And often the person will say, oh, I didn't even notice. So could you ask the horse to go backwards and cede space? Because that horse is too much into your space. I can tell by the way you are slowly going backwards and becoming even smaller. And then they can play with that. Oh, raising the energy. Usually the posture gets bigger. They get literally taller. And for some, especially for people who do not have a lot of confidence, that's a great way to feel how it's like when you actually become your biggest self. You raise your energy bubble. And then the magic happens when that same horse peacefully walks backwards and saying, oh, okay, this is your room. Sorry, didn't mean to disturb you there. Oh, yeah, I had somebody tearing up when we did exactly that exercise. And she said, you know what? I feel like I've been bullied by other people, but now I see, no, the others are not the problem. They are not the bullies. It's me leaving room to everybody else, always going backwards, making room, accommodating everyone. Yeah, that was a key moment.
It's a really great example. It's for this energy thing, it's everywhere. It shows up in our interactions. And as you said, it's often easier for us to watch the group dynamics of others and to see spacing, leadership, influence, like what are the patterns that are emerging out there? And then, of course, to have a coach to ask us the questions to help us reflect in. And I just love how animals, horses in particular, make our energetic communication visible.
Yeah.
Like, because they are listening to the energy, they're not just stepping on it like we often do with people. And we've got our own dynamics and patterns, especially if we're familiar with people. But actually, to be able to go, wait, I'm letting the horse, it's not walking on me, I'm getting out of its way. Where else am I doing that? Where else am I communicating that? It's a great way to see the empowerment that we do have to be able to then choose to express it differently. I love that example.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then if you look at, so we looked at someone who's a strong energy and then someone who's more weak. Well, what happens, and you see this in the animal world as well.
Sorry, just to jump in real quick, that were your words, strong and weak. I'm not sure that Wencke you spoke to. Interesting to notice that because this is exactly what happens in the workplace.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's how people perceive unconsciously very often how hierarchy is playing out. And very often you probably will make the connection that somebody who has a lot of energy is in it might be strong if he's not all over the place. And that people with less energy and who might be a little more silent are weak. But that's a certain concept of
Yeah.
leadership that's playing out there. And I mean, if clients bring up such vocabulary, again, that's a nice entry point to reflect, what's your perception of leadership and followership, and how do you see yourself? And there's another dimension that is fascinating about energy. Very often, humans find it difficult to raise their energy without attaching certain emotions to it, like anger, or even the idea of dominance. If I have more energy, I'm dominant. No, not in the horse world. So people can really play around the idea of energy, raising it, dialing it back down without any emotion attached to it. It's completely neutral. And it's a great way to communicate with horses. If you raise your energy, the horse will listen to you, and then you can make the horse move. You can even, let's say you stand in the middle of the arena and the horse is somewhere out there at the fence. You can ask the horse to walk, trot, or canter just with the level of your energy. And the horse is at peace, can canter around you, and then you dial down your energy, and the horse will start walking. It's powerful.
Yeah. So where I was going to, and I'm going to use my words again because that's the example I want to bring. So what happens, and that happens in the animal world as well, if you have two dominant or strong that they want to be the leaders. And so how does that happen with that energy go? And how, for example, with horses, how do they determine who is going to be the dominant one and the other one is going to follow?
It's such a great example. Thank you for bringing that up, because probably the general notion out there would be, of course, it's the strongest. It's the strongest horse that will be assertive and taking over the herd. But that's not the case. And I have a wonderful example of that at the horse farm I'm going to, where my lease horse is. He's an old thoroughbred, and at the farm it's all thoroughbreds. We got this skinny baby mare. She was 4 years old. She had almost died because of starvation when the owner of the farm took her on. After a couple of weeks, she had recovered so much that she was taking over the other horse that was out there with her. And that horse was twice as big as she was. And I talked to the owner of the farm about that. I thought, that is so fascinating. See what little magic is doing. She's showing the other horse the way, where to go. He has to make room when she's coming over. What's going on there? And she said, yeah, that's her spirit. It's because she's the more spirited horse. And that big gelding, twice as big, twice the weight of hers, is respecting that. She's the one saying what we're going to do or what we are not going to do. And it may play out in different ways with other herds. Sometimes you have a lead horse for a special dimension, like at the farm where we're doing the equine coaching. When it comes to food, it's a horse that holds a lot of anxiety, but he's the best one telling the others where the best resources are, where the best grass is, the best hay, so then they will follow him. But he is not the one during other times of the day that is leading. Then it's the more spirited gelding, and he's definitely the one that can claim territory, and the other horse will always make room for him.
That's great. It's amazing. But and how do you apply this to people, and certainly about leadership, where you have, well, leadership, you have two people who want to try to lead or to be the leader, or and you have that, what you call the spirit, and how do you play this out, and how do you make sure that it it comes to a consensus who is going to be the one leading? I don't know if you follow my questioning going on.
Of course, organizational hierarchy helps a little. So if there's an official relationship, who's reporting to whom, then you can work around that. But let's say these people are showing up in the arena with the horses. What we then do is we have an exercise even without the horses, so just to raise their awareness. And that's we divide people into small groups, and each group gets a lead rope. And all we say is, okay, you're a team now. Here's your lead rope. Do something together as a team. And then it's so interesting, right? Who's touching the lead rope first and where? Who is going in what direction? Is the team going with that person in that direction? Let's say somebody took the lead and is walking in some direction. Will he or she cede leadership at some point? So does it even occur to her or him that he or she might ask the others to take the end of the lead rope and lead and go somewhere? We did that exercise with coaches, and we did that exercise with real working teams. And there we found, okay, coaches, which speaks to our profession, are ultra aware of what they are doing, what the others are doing. And a huge conversation, very lively, started around that exercise. A whole philosophy of humankind went into it. It was fascinating. I mean, yeah, it could have been a parody of coaching, but we loved it. We are part of it. So we embraced all of that. The team, I mean, it really depends on the team. We had teams that had a very lovely conversation around that too, and a lot of awareness. But we also had a team that didn't have a lot of awareness and very little self-awareness, and they were not really observing what the others were doing or what they themselves were doing. So, in a way, it fell flat. We can ask a couple of questions to raise a little awareness, but then at least you know, okay, this team probably has a lot of work to do.
The other thing I see in your question is, Erwin, is like, what's the task? What are we doing here? I know humans will often put down the task, put down the relationship, and suddenly we've got to fight for the political, like, who is going to lead? We can't go anywhere because I'm not going to follow you, so you need to follow me. And so we have this emotional, often fear-based battle before we can do things.
Yeah.
And I see that in leadership and teams. It's actually, well, hang on, we can't have a team because the weaker has to follow. And it is that strong weak, it is that positioning. And then, you definitely see it in teams. The bosses go this way and everyone's dragging their feet, but everyone's walking in that direction. So the team does move, but there's no actual team. And I love seeing that with horses again, because you can't do it with a horse. You can
Yeah.
lay stuff out and watching some people trying to command and control and overbearing energy to try to influence and control the horse, and just to watch it just and then run off in a different direction. And suddenly what we do with people in terms of overpowering, suddenly it's not a powerful strategy anymore. So we have to look at what else can I do to connect with, invite, create safety, but also then direct at the same time. Because the horse has to choose to run, but how do I influence that now when it's moving becomes a really fascinating conversation to watch leaders go through in their own head to try to work that out.
Yeah. And the polarity task relationship is a great one that shows up when we have clients out at the farm, because then we ask them to onboard an equine member to the team and do the same exercise. So one lead group, 3 or 4 people, and one equine team member. And usually people again start very much in their heads and think, oh, the task is, oh, we have a lead rope, and they immediately associate that means walking. Okay, we have to walk the horse somewhere. And then what happens over time is they get more into the relationship, and the task orientation takes the back seat, and they really feel into the horse. And usually somebody will bring up the question, wait a minute, what does the horse want? And that's an aha moment for the team. And they said, okay, how do we find out what the horse wants? And of course, they can't find out through communication. So they somehow have to read the horse's body, the horse's facial expression. And what they find out is most of the time the horse is perfectly happy just hanging out there with them and enjoying the community. And then you can see how everybody is taking a deep breath. So a lot of self-regulation happening there without them being aware of it. Their shoulders drop, they start standing, they are in the flow. Somebody might be touching the horse. The horse will half close his eyes. It's amazing. And then, of course, you can have a conversation about, how do you feel as a team now?
The other thing I love seeing at that point, now that there is a team, often this is the point where the task becomes really easy.
Oh,
If we move to a certain spot, now we can do it. We're not fighting against this stuff to deliver a task, but we've built what needs to happen. And from here, we can then deliver the results that need to happen. And I'm saying this explicitly because it's not that dichotomy that we often get into. It's not either task or relationship. And if I'm going to go to relationship, I've got to give up on the task. And if I'm going to do task, I've got to do it at the expense of relationship. The linearity of that is long gone. But it's actually, well, if we need to deliver that task, how do we create the we so that there is a we to deliver on the task? It's not all about standing there and breathing. And sometimes it is so that we can come together in preparation to deliver what it is that we need to be delivering.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, imagine a world and where at the beginning of each team meeting, people would take 2 minutes to really get grounded and feel into the room and then start the conversation on about what they want to do. Yeah.
Actually, when
It's
I'm listening, is like a leader should actually be the horse.
yeah.
Because when they come in, it's like, let me bring you, I'm that spirit of the team. Let's build that relationship and now let's go. That's what I got out of it.
That's a great image. Yeah, every team needs a horse, and then they would function better as a
Yeah,
team. They would.
exactly. And the leaders should actually learn to be that horse because
Yeah.
they need to bring that energy and bring that spirit and bring that, okay, what's that relationship? Now, team, what's the task?
I
Yeah.
would add to that. One of the things, Wencke, you said before is that horses are listening to the energy and they're paying attention to the energy.
Mm,
I think that's an important leadership role as well.
okay.
Because a horse, when the energy gets too big, it will walk away and go, I'm not going to be part of that. And actually, to not tolerate what we shouldn't tolerate is definitely a leadership responsibility. Is where we are, what we're doing, and what we're all communicating working for all of us? Are we leaving anyone behind? How do we pay attention to that team level energy of what's emerging? Yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
wisdom where you're pointing, Erwin, both to lead that, but also then, of course, to respond to and make visible how we are operating together so we can deliver what we need to deliver.
Yeah, and there's another concept in the horse world that applies beautifully to leadership with humans, and that is leading from behind. So even if you are the boss, you are the lead horse, it doesn't mean that you are always the first with whatever the team is doing. You do not have to lead from the front, you can lead from behind. That's trusting the others and seeing that everything is safe in the background and observing the direction. And if the direction is okay, you let the others go. Yeah, that is another powerful thing we can take from the horse world.
Absolutely. Well, I'm noticing time, As much as I'd love to continue and keep exploring, particularly that concept of leading from behind, which I think is so profoundly powerful. But Wencke, thanks for bringing your insights and wisdom here. For those that would love to connect more or learn more, how can people find you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm on LinkedIn, so everybody will find me there under my name. And then my new website will launch soon. That's also my name, wenckemeteling.com. And if you're interested in horse retreats and equine coaching, then we have a special website for that, my friend and I, that is connectwith8wire.com.
Well, thank you very much, Wencke, for this interesting and exciting discussion and talk about how horses can help to really get that spirit in the right level and really go moving forward. So thank you very much. And for everybody else, thank you very much for listening in. And until the next episode, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.